I feel like this joke is gonna get old someday. I mean, like, me constantly drinking Monster on camera. It's not like I'm sponsored by Monster or anything. They're not gonna sponsor me. I'm some random kid from Ohio who doesn't even get paid on YouTube. So, why would they sponsor me? I like to be energetic in my videos, and I make videos at 1 a.m., so... I kind of need that, alright? Stop it. Hello everybody, and welcome to 3 Random Anime, the show where I review 3 random anime. It's just not as catchy as We Review, the show where I review your favorite anime, you know? Finishing up with the spring season, we are talking about 86, Shadow's House, and Odd Taxi. If you want to skip to a specific review, you can use the chapters or the timestamps that are shown on the screen. With all that out of the way, let's begin. 86 is a really great show. It's the kind of show I feel like I can recommend to any anime fan and they'll get something out of it. It's an emotional journey with only 11 episodes to it. I know there's a season 2 confirmed, but at the moment of recording, there's only 11 episodes. The story is pretty incredible, to be honest with you. I mean, the premise, the world building, the progression, the racism aspect, and the twists and turns, like everything is done so well. The whole racism, ruthless oppression, the prejudice against the 86 plot, I really enjoyed that. A lot of stories try to have a group that is oppressed in some way, have like a racism storyline, but it just falls flat because they don't show you how the group is actually oppressed and instead try and tell you how you're supposed to feel, and that just doesn't work. Think Ruby in the furnace. But this show does not have that issue. We see how terribly treated the 86 are. They're treated as war machines instead of people, which is sad, especially because the characters are really interesting. Seamless transition. The two mains, Lena and Shin, are really well developed and have really good growth. Let's start off with Lena. Lena is a naive girl who wants to try and help the 86, but she's powerless to do anything. She tries to relate to the 86, but that's kind of like a white person trying to relate to a black person's struggles. It's just, it doesn't work, obviously. And over time, you see this girl begin to lose her mind because she cannot do anything to help these poor people. And she knows if she doesn't do anything, they're gonna die. But there's nothing she can do. Like, there's nothing she can do about it. I really love that conflict with her character, especially since eventually she goes all bad girl mode and breaks the rules, which it was long awaited. I mean, how many times are you gonna get rejected until you finally just say, fuck it, I'm gonna take the shit, just try and stop me. Shin is a pretty quiet kid who is easily the strongest of the 86. I mean, he doesn't have the nickname Undertaker for nothing. By the way, that nickname is badass. He's usually mute, but he does open up to Lena later on in the series, and it's very nice to see him smile. I mean, you have a kid who's been forced to go into a war for his entire life. Like, ever since he was a kid, he's been stuck in this war because of this whole racism thing. And he lost his friends, he lost all his family members. What do you think that does to a kid? Obviously, he's quiet and mute and edgy. What do you think that does to a kid? So it's very nice to see him smile in the later episodes of this show. It's very nice to see. There are other characters I enjoyed, but talking about them all is just gonna take way too long, so I'm just gonna briefly mention a few. Annette is a character I really enjoyed. She's the best friend of Lena, and she also doesn't like the mistreatment of the 86, but she also just cannot do anything about it, and eventually she just goes along with it, which makes her hate herself, and she eventually lashes out on her best friend Lena. I cannot blame her for losing her shit, especially that whole situation with her father. Like, I cannot blame her at all for losing her marbles there. Episode 10 and episode 11 did really great things for the main 486. Like, I liked those characters before, but those 2 episodes really did wonders for them for me. There's a human connection to all these characters. They all feel very real. I said Vivi has the best animation of this season, and I still think so, but 86 is definitely a close second. The transitions in this show are seamless and smooth and wonderful. Listen, I love good transitions. I don't get to talk about this enough because not enough shows have really good transitions, so let me have this moment, alright? The transitions to the endings are phenomenal every time. And there's one scene where someone is kicking something into the camera, so like a rock or whatever. flies into the camera and then it leads to another scene. Like, why don't more shows do stuff like that? That's so cool. The action scenes are really well done. They're just nice. A1 Pictures is a good studio. Not much else I can say here. And I really love how war shows all have this super dark, super gray color palette. It really captures just how bleak and depressing war is, and that sends a really depressing mood to me. Wanna know what else helps the action? The soundtrack. The soundtrack in the show is really good. The OP is great, the ending is wonderful, and the songs and the action scenes are very fitting. They're just action-packed nonsense that really excites you. And guess who made the soundtrack? Who? Fucking Sawano, that's who. One of the greatest anime composers of all time. I don't want to hear anything else. And there was also Kota Yamamoto, who also helped with Sawano in Attack on Titan Season 4, but that's not as fun to say as motherfucking Sawano. Pacing. It's quite the controversial topic as there's different paces for different phases, but I really enjoy 86's pace. I liked that they only adapted one volume from the source material, whereas other shows would adapt multiple volumes. It just sets a really good pace for the show. The final positive I want to talk about is the voice acting. I mentioned before that all the characters have a very human-like feel to them, and I think the voice acting has a lot to do with that. When Theo goes off on Lena, you can hear the anger in Theo's voice, and you can also hear the sadness in Lena's, so I have to shout out both voice actors for that performance. That scene left a mark on me, I have to say. The only kinda downside I have is the episode length, but that's not even really a bad thing because they adapted so little of the source material that 11 episodes didn't really affect the story whatsoever, and it ended at a pretty good spot, so it's not even really a bad thing, it's just, eh. You guys remember the first season of Promised Neverland? You guys remember when it started off as a super wholesome show but then slowly morphed into something darker? Well, Shadow's House is kind of like that. Which is fitting because both are done by Cloverworks. Out of every show in the spring season, Shadow's House was the concept that interested me the most. And that's saying something because you have many great shows in this season. I love stories that start out friendly but then morph into something darker as they continue on. Shadow's House does that perfectly. And unlike Promised Neverland, and keep in mind, I love Promised Neverland, but the massive twist in that show came super early. I think it was in like the first episode. And it doesn't really let you have time to really think and figure out the mystery for yourself. Shadow's House allows you to think about it, and I really like questioning things as they come up. What kind of dolls get tired? I mean, they're supposed to be made of plastic or something, right? So how can they look tired? The cast in Shadow's House is alright. They're not the deepest, most interesting bunch, but they're entertaining. And Miliko is a huge positive for this show, not just because she's a big ball of sunshine in a super dark, gloomy show that you can't help but love, but also because she is super curious about all the things around her. What do you do when you have a plot that's all about not questioning trivial matters? You make a main character that can't help but question everything around her. Kate, Patrick's, and Wiki's developments are all pretty interesting to watch. The other characters I enjoyed were John, Sean, Edward, and Rum, because I love Shy Girls, except for Nina. Fuck Nina. You might have noticed that is about 90% of the cast. Well, that should tell you how I feel about the characters then. Animation is good. Cloverworks is surprisingly a good studio. Who would have guessed? So far, Cloverworks is getting a bit of a bad reputation because of the endings to Promised Neverland and Wonder Egg Priority, and I'm not saying it's not unwarranted. They are a good studio, come on. The soundtrack is wonderful. The ending is an absolute banger. I don't talk about endings a lot on this show, but this is a rare case. Because, man, anything with the choir is like the greatest thing in the world to me. It's a lot better as a full song than in the actual ending though. The OP is also very entertaining to me. I feel like there's not enough orchestral OPs in anime. I think this is orchestral. I'm not sure what this is, but it sounds like orchestral to me. I don't know music genres, alright? I took choir. There's a lot of times where the anime OP is played in the background, but just in like a different style. Like I'm pretty sure there's a piano one if I remember correctly. I like that. I feel like more shows should do that as well. I thought it was a nice touch. I thought the character design was cute too. Emilico is adorable, and so is Wum. And hey, shouts out to them for somehow making the shadows have facial expressions, despite them literally being vacant. My only gripe about this series, and it's not really like a massive gripe, but the pacing in the second half was a little fast. I'm surprised the big reveal happened this season. Even though it was super obvious what the big reveal was, I felt like they were gonna push it off to the second season, or maybe the ending of the first season. It's not anything that ruins the season or anything, just a little small gripe. Overall, good show. That's it. Moving on. There's this thing in fandoms that I like to call the Damian Lillard effect, and basically what the Damian Lillard effect is, if you don't know basketball, is when something is called underrated for so long and for so many times that it's not underrated anymore. I love Odd Taxi, but I never call it underrated. When two of the biggest content creators that talk about anime call it underrated, it's not underrated anymore, I'm sorry. The same thing happened with Vivi and Tokyo Avengers earlier in the season. A show isn't underrated just because it isn't the most popular show airing at the time. However, just because I don't consider it underrated, doesn't mean I don't think Odd Taxi is flat out amazing. It's another Anime of the Year contender. I almost feel stupid for confidently saying it was gonna be Vivi when this show was airing in the exact same season. It took me a while to watch Odd Taxi, but in the end, it is damn good. If you like dialogue-heavy shows with likable characters, a plot that is impossible to predict, good animation, and just an overall good atmosphere, this is the show for you. The story in Odd Taxi is tough to explain because I'd have to spoil stuff to make it sound as good as it is, and I don't want to spoil anything, so I'll try and explain this the best I can. Odd Taxi is a show about a taxi driver that meets a bunch of unique individuals. For example, there's a hippo that wants to blow up on social media. There's a idol manager and his idols that are cats. There's Dobu, who's a delinquent and a criminal. There are cops who are working with Dobu, a comedy duo known as the Homo Sapiens, and a whole lot more. I'll take a quote that I found from a Mal reviewer talking about Odd Taxi's story, and yeah, I know it's a Mal review, and people don't like Mal reviews, but I think this is a pretty good way to describe the plot. They said that it's more of a puzzle and not an anime, and I cannot agree more. You are given pieces to this big mystery, and over time, the pieces start to connect to reveal what's really going on. Why are the characters animals? Who is really behind everything? What is going on in the show? All of that is slowly given to you as the show progresses, and it's not like it's outright told to you. You are just giving hints that slowly form the puzzle. They don't outright tell you what's going on, they give you hints, and slowly but surely the story starts to make more sense and the puzzle, the picture, starts being formed. That's the true genius of Odd Taxi's story. Not every story is amazing. For example, Kakihana's story is just painfully predictable compared to the West. Like, you know what's going to happen to Kakihana at the end of his story. But at least that one makes me feel sympathetic for Kakihana. I mean, the dude just wanted love. But all the characters' stories besides that one are extremely unpredictable and engaging. And man, what about that ending? I mean, perfection. My God. Satisfying, but it also leaves a lot of questions. It's amazing we had two shows this season in Vivi and Odd Taxi that were original anime that were as good as stories as they were, and they ended perfectly in just one season. I mean, that is very rare to come across, and the fact that we had two this season, we should not take that for granted. Once again, it's tough to talk about this cast without spoiling something, but I will talk about them briefly. I liked Odokawa. He's likable throughout the entire series, and the supporting cast around him are all very entertaining in their own ways. Some of them are relatable to me, like the hippo, who's obsessed with social media. I mean, I'm trying to go viral because I'm a YouTuber, that's like part of my goal. So I can relate to him wanting to go viral as much as he does. Some of them are just funny, like Yamo constantly rhyming whenever he talks with a rap beat behind him. And also there's the Homo Sapiens, who are always talking like a comedy duo type thing. A character I found interesting was Hajime. I mean, he was a completely normal person who has a very obsessive personality. One thing I enjoy about this show is that the few comedy moments the show has are really funny. It's not over the top comedy like in a lot of anime, A lot of people don't like that sort of thing. I do, but a lot don't. But this comedy kind of feels like a comedy routine, you know? It doesn't feel over the top and loud. It just feels natural. The writing is great, I already said that, but just the way the characters talk to each other just feels so real. Now, I'm not Japanese, so I'm not sure how Japanese people talk to each other, but it does have a very natural feeling to me. I can't tell you how accurate it truly is, but it feels real to me, so I thought I'd mention it. The animation is decent. It's not something that'll like make your jaw drop like Vivi, but it fits the show. The CGI could have been better, and the action scenes could have also been better, but it's not something like it's terrible. No, it's just, it's average. I understand why people get turned off when animals are like in a show, because a lot of anime fans just don't like furries for whatever reason. I understand that furries, like the bad furries, are really bad, but I doubt that's most of the fandom. I hope so, at least. The animals don't serve a huge purpose in the show like Beastars and BNA, like there's no carnivores eating herbivores in the show, but it does add a lot to the show. First, it makes the show more unique, something that just makes it stand out even more. Second, it's important to Otokawa's character, and it makes him feel more relatable to me because I felt the same way at some point. And it's really important to his backstory. You don't have that backstory when the characters are all humans. And third, I just think it fits the show. I'm not against animals in anime, alright? BNA is my most popular video, and I called Beastars Anime of the Year last year. So I'm not against animals in my anime, so I actually really enjoy the character design. And finally, the soundtrack. Ooh, yes, the soundtrack. It's really good, y'all. Like, really good. The OP is so chill. They speed it up in some episodes, and that's how you know shit's gonna go down in an episode, is when they cut up the OP. The ending is wonderful, though a little out of place. I mean, you got this serious show, and most episodes ended in some kind of cliffhanger, and then you have this ending that's all happiness and rainbows. Odd Taxi is good. Sorry I can't have a different opinion from everybody else who's talked about this show on this platform, but it's a good show, y'all. It's not a show everyone would love. I wouldn't recommend this to everyone, but if you enjoy dialogue-heavy shows that feature a really interesting mystery, then I think this is the show for you. You know, the Monogatari type shows that are more like puzzles than actual shows. Thank you guys for checking out this episode of 3 Random Anime. I hope you guys enjoyed. And don't drink as much Monster as me, because your heart might give out when you're 30. I don't care about that though, so, you know. Who wants to grow old anyway? I'll see you guys next time. I'm Kikaya. Goodbye.